morning. It is May 18th, Monday morning at 6 a.m. here in the Pacific Northwest. Welcome to Flow Chaser Monday. I am presenting a theory on accessing the flow state. I wasn't able to be here last week. A minute into this presentation, I got interrupted by a sick kid. Thank you for understanding. This presentation is recorded and it is done every Monday in 2026. And I'll tell you a little bit more about like what that's all about. I'll talk briefly about who I am. But in this pursuit of presenting this case for chasing flow, and really as an alternative option to chasing goals, but chasing flow, I really feel is the antithesis of burnout. So I'll talk a little bit about how these two ideas and concepts are related and bring it all into about the chasing of flow, alignment, values, things like that. There's no selling. I have nothing to sell you. This is just a practice that I'm doing every Monday in 2026 to really improve my presentation skills on this one presentation. I thought about what is one topic that I could do 52 times and not get bored, and flow chasing has definitely been a topic worthy of a year-long goal. I'm Lacey. I run a creative business and I have for the last 10 years. I do brand and web design for small service-based businesses. I'm a highly sensitive person with really inconsistent energy patterns and as somebody who likes to produce and set a lot of personal and professional goals. Sometimes it feels like at odds with who I am, like the goal chasing, the running after things, which has led to burnout in its many different flavors. So first, I want to talk about burnout. Burnout really starts when you have a high capacity person. It's not the person I say that, you invite them to a barbecue and you say, "Oh yeah, just bring napkins," or something like that. Like these are the people where you're telling them to bring like a main course or something because they're just known for being on it, a high capacity person in whatever regard. And then that capacity gets praised, it gets resources, it gets promotions, it gets all these things. Now, we haven't talked about is the thing that they're doing actually like driving fulfillment and joy and happiness, like that's the thing that they want to be doing. And because when we're praised for the things that we feel like we're good at or that we can do or that is necessarily like easy for us, there tends to be this backlog of like, is that the most stimulating for who we are and our souls and everything? My computer just did something. I'm trying to figure out why. Okay. So this burnout happens because there's a disconnect between what we are doing and the drive and the assertion that we are making for that drive, because that's where we get the praise, but it's not somehow in alignment with us. Then because that pain of that difference is so painful, we do a lot of like unconscious behaviors. It could be things like not sticking to like a work time and having boundaries with that, or like the people pleasing tendencies. It could just lead to not wanting to do much of anything, like this total death of like the creative and the fun in your life. It just feels like all the good creative juices are gone, which feels a lot like the opposite of flow, at least flow as when we're thinking about a positive experience of getting into this like work, this like work mind or this group mind or this very flexible state of like what flow is. And I believe that's because we're taught a lot about how to do a project, to set goals, to really like aim and be ambitious, like aim higher. but we're not taught about how to continually get in re-touch with our goals. And are the goals that we are setting, are they like flow productive things, or are they more in the realm of burnout that's going to lead to this like negative association with that state of total absorption and focus? So with burnout in mind of what could happen if you chase a goal that's based off of other people's priorities versus chasing flow, which is really being in touch with your own priorities, and the chase ensues. And that's where you have like these continuous chances to be in this flow state. So I'll talk a little bit about what I believe flow is. I know as professionals, this flow science has been pushed at us as a way to make us more productive. I hope to reclaim a little bit about what flow is for you personally. And I'll just say that while all of this is my own conceptualization of flow from the many resources that I have read and listened to about flow science, there's still a lot of flexibility for each person to be like, I'm slightly different. I'm like this. I'm completely different. So, what I found is that chasing flow is just radically individual. And that's what all the science would show too. The things that engage your brain in flow are not the things that'll engage my brain in flow, or maybe they are. Um, but there is a uniqueness to that quality. So, I'll talk a little bit about what flow is, your brain on flow, how to chase flow, where I feel like we have the most flexibility to engage with it, which is creativity and adaptability, which comes down to like, how do you have this like radically creative and adaptable lifestyle? I think it comes down to the baseline level of radical self acceptance and alignment. And that's like my big revolutionary theory here, and alignment as a flow trigger. So that's where we're going. How I conceptualize flow is that each of us at any given moment, this is a fluctuating state. Maybe it's like breathing, and we have this comfort zone. And sometimes our comfort zone is just very, very tight, and we need to stay at the very center of it because outside feels very overwhelming. But inside your comfort zone, you know exactly what's going to happen. You feel totally at peace. You're relatively comfortable with like the environment, the challenge ahead of you. It's like brushing your teeth. Like you know what's going to happen when you brush your teeth, right? And then we get towards the edge of our comfort zone, and that's where things like questions start, like curiosity. Like I don't know what's going to happen, and then if it's like very close to your comfort zone, it's like, I don't know what's going to happen, but I'm relatively sure it's going to like work out well. So that's kind of like from the center of your comfort zone where you are just an automatic, you know exactly what's going to happen. There's no challenge present. There's no question even present. You are just completely comfortable, to where there's more questions, and then you get creativity. When you endeavor in a creative project, we call it creativity because you don't necessarily know what is going to happen in that container. You're really creating the energy around it. And that's a very question inducing space. Like, I don't know what's going to happen if I use this color in this art. Maybe let's try it. So you are getting towards the edge of your comfort zone. And this pulls our brain into that complete focus and absorption, especially when the stakes are higher. When there's physical stakes, like mountain climbers, there was somebody who was talking about in Stephen Kotner's book, a mountain climber that fell from a very high point, and they did this very specific amount of spirals and twists, and landed and somehow like didn't die, because they said later they were just in this complete flow where they were with the movement and what needed to happen, and things moved at this like exponentially slow, like there was something time warpy about it, but there was complete focus and absorption into the landing, that this person needed to do. Surfers, like that kind of like thrill flow that people chase, the complete focus and absorption is a hallmark of this like flow state. And that happens when you're outside of your comfort zone because you need a little bit of a challenge, whether it's like mentally creative creatively, physically, that really pulls your brain's focus. And that goes all the way up until dysregulation zone. And the dysregulation zone is when you're out of sorts, like you all of your energy goes to processing regulation. So the things that you need to calm yourself down, like after you just got done with that like death defying move, you probably needed to like work on your regulation, right? um Dysregulation zone is not necessarily like this bad thing, but it is like a stopping point for flow. So the theory presents that the better tools that we have for self-regulation, then the more potentiality we have for flow. And why do you want more flow? Because your brain on flow feels really good. There's something about the getting to the edge of the comfort zone or into a conversation where you don't necessarily know what's happening, goes into that potentiality for creative ness, for creation. And that gives us a dopamine surge. We get norepinephrine, endorphins, and adenines. And because of this chemical cocktail, the prefrontal cortex, which it's really a bully most of the time, especially for me as an ADHD girly. But this bully quiets down with all of these good feeling drugs that your brain is just producing as a reaction to whatever situation that you're in. And I believe that you can manufacture this situation to really kind of control these levers of just outside of my comfort zone and before you get into dysregulation. How to chase flow. This is so unique and individual to everyone. And this is why I love talking about chasing flow as opposed to all the goals that I might be setting or you might be setting, because flow really asks, what is your connection to the work that you're doing? What is your involvement? How is your brain playing with all these factors? Where is your comfort zone? Even asking an individual, like, where's your comfort zone right now? Like, not where you think it should be, not where it was last Monday. Where is it right now? And flow asks you to like get in there and play with these mechanisms in your own brain, in your own soul and psyche with the things that you find interesting and involved. How to get that like total immersion, focus, attention, right? Bashar is a Oh gosh, how do I explain this for non-woo-woo people? Bashar is channeled by, it's a channeled works by a person named Daryl. And the stuff that is channeled is absolutely beautiful. But Bashar has this formula for living that really is this great formula for how to chase flow. And his first step is saying, act on passion first, act with your highest passion. So that the thing you find interesting, exciting. If you have ADHD, you know how important caring about what it is you are trying to focus on is for the actual focusing. And so this act on passion first means like if you are inspired to try out a different project or to try out a new thing, that can itself break you into a flow state because you are getting towards the edge of your comfort zone. Two, act as far until the excitement wanes. There's like a natural pattern to when we get into these flow states. Like we cannot be high on speed all the time. That is like not healthy. It's like maybe it feels really great for a moment, but these flow states are passing. And so as the excitement wanes, we need to let it go. When these flow states come in, like this death hold grip to, I'm going to be in this flow state for as long as my Pomodoro timer is on, or it's not a successful flow state. But what Bashar is saying is like, one, act on the thing that you're like most passionate, engaged in, like importance. It feels exciting, right? And you're asking those questions that would really launch you outside of your comfort zone into the flow state. And then act as far until the excitement wanes. That might be like coming up to the dysregulation zone, but the fact that there is an endpoint to all of these like heightened awareness states is a very important part of this whole equation. Act on passion without assumption of outcome. This could be like release expectation of how it's going to be. When you never hear a story, but I guess it was really popular about this this farmer who son goes out and brings back a horse, and the neighbors say, "Oh, you're so lucky you have this new horse." It was like a wild horse that the son found, and the father says, "We'll see." And then the son was breaking in the horse, and he broke his leg, and the neighbors say, "Oh, your son's leg is broken. What bad luck." And the farmer says, "We'll see." And then the army comes to the village and is recruiting all the young men, but able-bodied men, but the farmer's son can't go. And the townspeople say, "Oh, how lucky, you still have your son." And, it's always we'll see. So act on passion without assumption of outcome. You just can't see like right now if something is like good or bad. You have to have all the potentiality and all the possibilities outside of the comfort zone. And you can't assume that just because you're getting indicators that like, oh, this is working out well, this isn't working out well, that the whole outcome is like not worthy or not good. That letting go of like, oh, this is good or this is bad, that judgment or the assumption of like how things are going to turn out is really important to this flow inducing process. No matter what manifests, stay in the positive state. Bashar makes this very spiritual, but it's like improv rules. When something comes in, you roll with it. Like just imagining that all of these different factors, my daughter coming in 1 minute into my last week's presentation, ruining this like 19-week streak. It didn't ruin anything. I still showed up. But my life got in the, my life happened. And so no matter what manifests, stay in a positive state. Of course, I turned off this webinar and I went to help her. But it's really great having this at 6 a.m. because typically for the other 51 weeks that I'm going to be doing this presentation, I'll probably have the benefit of getting through the entire thing and not just 1 minute into it. But no matter what happens, staying in that positive state of like, that just happened. Cool, let's go. Like, next thing. It's like volleying with the universe. And because if you get stuck in like, oh, it's all done, it's all over, like this is the last choice that I can make and it's finished, then you can really pinch yourself off from the possibilities of a really great, beautiful flow state. Examine your beliefs and release fear. I believe what Bashar is saying in this is that we always have this opportunity to control a flow state with how we think things have unfolded in the past or our beliefs about how they are going to unfold, or maybe even our protections. Like, I'm doing this so that that won't happen. I'm doing this so that this can happen. And what he's asking us to do is that as these things come up in the flow state, can we examine our beliefs? Like, is it true that this always happens at this part of the project? Or I am in this really great flowing conversation and I just got this like weird micro expression, and now I'm like kind of worried that they think I'm talking too much or something like that. Can we like release the fear? Because that fear is going to send us, and our beliefs that things are going to go negatively, or our beliefs that this has always happened, so that's just a foregone conclusion, can really stymie the flow state. We crave flow because it connects us to our excitement, our own internal motivations, our internal factors for how we want to operate in this environment. I believe that there's something very protective about being in the flow state when you're really volleying with the conditions and the things that change and feel changeable in the universe. It's the state of the most creative potential. Like, if you want to build a brand or a business, like getting into this creative flowing state, however you do that. But we crave this because it's what connects us to our intrinsic motivations more than any external ones of like a boss has a deadline for you or something like that. Like that internal connection to our own authenticity is something that is unique to chasing flow as opposed to working on a goal. That's my theory. Creativity and adaptability. So when we are outside of our comfort zone, we are doing things because we don't necessarily know how it's going to turn out, right? And so when new things happen, in a really great flow state, we are accepting these challenges as flow triggers. So something happened, oh, how am I gonna like work that in? It's like when you're playing Scrabble and you get like new letters, you just got a new challenge, and now you have more potentiality for working the board than you did when you had less letters on your deck, right? So are you accepting these challenges as flow triggers? And I believe that the more access we have to our creativity and our adaptability, there's times in your life where you're not going to be extremely adaptable. You really need things to show up a certain way. Maybe that's because you're going through a health crisis, or like work things are slow, or you just did this like really hard challenge that you've come through. And your creativity and adaptability has just been used up by other factors, right? When we want to open ourselves up to more creativity and adaptability, what we can do is like spend more time in your comfort zone. And then as things feel available and exciting, acting on our excitement and interest, accepting those challenges as flow triggers. But anything that enhances your creativity and helps you adapt to frustrations or struggles that happen in the world, things like maybe having a consistent movement practice, taking in great nutrition, getting sunlight. These things are known for me to really help with that ability to cope and adapt and keep that positive attitude when things happen, when things adjust, and not go into the dysregulation zone, which is fine. I go there, but it's nice to feel like there are some tools that keep that dysregulation zone more optional, so I can cut off a really great flow state before I get to dysregulation. That's my goal, at least. Here are some steps I believe are from like how to get into like good flow. And I think that's focus on self regulation. Number one, anything that you have, whether that's like meditation practice, physical practice, all those basics like light, air quality, water quality. I'm serious. Like those things really do help with like increasing the amount of self regulation one can has access to, right? Next, center your values and purpose, because chasing flow is different than just chasing a goal. A goal doesn't ask you to really find like your values and purpose. A flow state wants to know like what is the drive for you? Like why do you care? What's your involvement? Like how do you stay in a positive state when you get these challenges or, pivots? Um, that's what I believe flow is asking as opposed to like chasing goals. It's like your own alignment. So finding alignment with the activity, the conversation, the goal that you're mapping out. I do a lot of like written kind of journaly workflows, type of flows. So that's why I'm like doing a lot of hand symbols when I talk about like a good flow state. Um, I like to define a clear goal, and that could seem like counter to what I've said about it being this very creative and adaptable space. I believe defining a clear goal of like what I want to get out of a good flow session or even a conversation. Conversations are so flow inducing because there's this volleying, you have those like improv rules of like, yes, and this. So yeah, I think defining a clear goal in the conversation, in the work, in the effort that you're doing can really help propel like a good flow state, and then remove distractions. And then I I revise this every time I give this presentation, but some people actually need artifacts. So if you need artifacts to help you kind of like skip along, but other people like I do need a certain baseline clean in my office and my my spaces, and I do enjoy a few artifacts like toggling between notebooks and the computer work and things like that. Stop when you need to. This might actually be like the most important one because I was in this negative cycle with really getting myself into flow with a lot of stress. Like, there's a deadline. I need to get into this flow state to complete this. And I wasn't listening to like my body signals. And I think that that actually really hurt the amount of focus that I had access to because I wasn't stopping when I need to. So now I set a timer when I organize my work tasks. I have most tasks allocated for 50 minutes, and I stop when the timer has reached 50 minutes. I like cue into my body. Some of my like internal signals of stress are still like really, really quiet until they're not. So at 50 minutes, it's a good time for me to check in. How am I feeling? Do I need to go to the bathroom? Do I need to get some water? Do I need to walk around and get sunlight? Call a friend? But stopping when you need to is going to build trust with your focus. Because if every time you sit down, you coerce yourself to focus for long times and you like go until it's like an emergency, you have to pee, you just have to move, you've gotten a tightness in your neck. Like, this is not a good time. And as somebody with ADHD, I also get like the hyper focus. So I know what it feels like to just be like so locked into a position focused on something that it feels harmful. And my theory is that if we do that too often, we'll actually lose focus because our bodies don't trust us to like dip into that flow focused state because historically we haven't stopped. Something to think about. In the end, I feel like the biggest difference between chasing flow and chasing goals is this need to really understand that whatever your excitement is, or even like the flows that you find yourself really pursuing, because this isn't about the burnout model of getting acceptance for things that other people find productive and valuable. This is really like an internal thing of like, how am I connected to the work that I'm doing? How am I connected to these experiences and things? And having that baseline confidence that whoever I am and my own stew of talents, experiences, and challenges is worthy of acceptance and support. Like, that is a baseline fundamental of self-acceptance and alignment. And when you can find that, I believe that your chasing flow experience becomes a lot more nuanced and exciting and vital in your creative and just personal happiness. And this really does expand capacity when we're stopping when we need to, way before we hit the dysregulation zone. But we're accepting these new challenges as flow triggers, but we are really interested and invested in this. And there is this element of we don't know what's going to happen, but we're excited to find out. This expands our capacity for being in that flow state because our bodies can trust that, we got a timer, this is going to end, it's going to be taken care of, we're safe to come out of our comfort zone. It's really a showing to tell your nervous system that this flow state is a safe and wonderful place to be for your mind, for your soul, for your interests. I hope that you can hang out in this flow state, however that looks for you this week. This is a presentation that I will see you next Monday at 6 a.m. And may you have a really great week chasing flow.